How you doing, sir?
Okay. How about yourself?
Okay. We're doing a documentary on the subject of racial images in religion and the psychological effects that racial images have upon the minds of children. And I just want to ask you a few questions. Is that all right?
Sure.
When you were coming up as a child, could you describe the pictures, statues that you might have seen of Jesus? Could you describe what they look like to you?
Yeah, sure. I can remember that pictures I seen of the Jesus figure. Was a Caucasian person image, blonde hair. Then they have other statues and then pictures of same European Caucasian image with brunette, hair brunette. You know what I mean? You see some blonde with blonde hair and some with brunette. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's what I used to see all the time. And I used to go to church and see the same, type, same image. What same type. How were you taught to accept Jesus? Were you taught to see him as what? As God in the flesh, Son of God, or just a prophet? How were you taught as a child to accept Jesus? Well, I was taught in the church that this image that we're looking at in the church, this big image of Jesus on the cross, crucified, as the Savior for all human beings, so on, and I used to just think about it a lot. I used to look at that image and see this image on the cross, looking very pitiful, thorns in his head and stakes through his hands and feet. You know what I mean? And they say this is the image of God in the flesh or the Son of God, right? Etc. And so forth. You know what I mean? And so if he's God, I kind of looked at it and said, wow. I said, he's God. They crucified God. They killed God. You know what I mean? And I know, I was wrestling with that in my mind. You know what I mean? That it was something wasn't right about that. It wasn't right. It just didn't sit right with me. So I never did really get off deep into it, you know what I mean? I just basically stopped going to church, because of that situation there, So, I couldn't rationalize that, you know what I mean? To be, this is God, you know what I mean? And God, in this pitiful situation that we see, you know what I mean, that they have of him. You know what I mean? This imagery, you know what I mean, etc.
See. So about how old were you when you were seeing these particular pictures? I mean, first the pictures that you saw and you recollected, I mean, how old were you at that point?
Say, about 12, 10 or 12, something like that. It's around that age.
Around 10 or 12?
Yeah.
And let me ask you another question. Do you think that those types of pictures, pictures of Jesus Christ seen as or explained to be as a Son of God or as God in the flesh, do you think that those pictures have some kind of psychological effect upon the minds of children today? You think that they affect them in any way?
I truly think so. I truly think so because when I seen the image around that age and so forth, that it was portraying there, it was something that about it that I used to look at this image and I used to think to myself, I said, God, this is Jesus, you know, the Son of God, etc. And everybody bowing down and worshiping this image and so forth. And I just, like I said, I feel like I didn't. It was someone right about that. You know what I mean? I couldn't really deal with that. You know what I mean? And that's why I left the religion for that reason. You know what I mean? Then later on, as I got older, I started realizing that image that I was wrestling with in my mind, you know what I mean, that I couldn't see no rationale in it, that it was really wrong, you know. It was something that it was really promoting a race over other race, you know what I mean, as the supreme model, you know what I mean, as the supreme model over all other races, you know. So that's what I came up with, you know, as I got older.
Well, thank you very much for this interview. I really appreciate it.
Thank you too, sir.
Hello, young lady. How are you?
Good. How are you?
All right. We're doing a documentary on the subject of racial imagery in religion and the psychological effects that racial images might have on the minds of children. Would you mind if I ask you a couple of questions?
Sure.
All right. Well, let's jump right into it. When you were coming up as a child, could you describe to me the way you saw Jesus, how you saw him, and
long-haired white dude.
long hair. Speak right into the camera.
A long-haired white dude.
Okay. And he represented what to you?
I guess Jesus.
I mean, was he? Well, some people said he was God in the flesh. Some said he was Son of God. Some said that he was just a prophet.
Yeah, Son of God.
Okay, Son of God. So, do you think that pictures and statues of Jesus being portrayed as a Son of God would have any kind of psychological effects upon the minds of children?
I mean, I guess in some degree, but they have to make their own decisions in the end, you know? I mean, I made my own decisions that it could be any race or color that Jesus could have been, you know?
Okay, I see.
But I was raised, yeah, mostly seeing white images.
Okay, so what do you think seeing a white image, as you say, of Jesus as being the Son of God, do you think that that particular image might, what kind of effect do you think it might have on the minds of African American children?
That I guess whites are, you know, the beginning of the race, I guess. It might have that implication.
Okay, all right. How do you think it might affect the mind of a young Caucasian child? How do you think his mind might be affected by seeing a picture just like that?
I guess some children could see it as, you know, more of acceptance, I guess. You know, I don't know.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's a great question. But I really appreciate you spending these few seconds with me on this interview, and I hope to see you again soon.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, hope your documentary goes well.
Thank you.
Thanks.
How are you, young lady?
I'm doing well.
Yes. We're doing a documentary on the subject of racial imagery in religion and the psychological effects that racial images might have upon the minds of children. Would you mind if I ask you a few questions?
Sure, go ahead.
All right. When you were coming up as a child, could you describe to me the pictures and statues, paintings that you saw of Jesus?
Well, all of them were white, and not just white, but very light skinned. Actually, that's not true. There's one image that my mom had, and the image of Jesus didn't look like any other image I'd seen before. He was very dark and a lot of hair, and just, you know, unlike any of the images that most people are subjected to, where the beard is nicely trimmed, he's got blue eyes,
I see.
you know, blondish brown hair.
Well, do you think that a child, I just want you to think hypothetically here with me for a second now, if a child were to see that particular image of Jesus, what do you think that a child might take away from an experience like that? What might he think?
I think a child would, well, if the child, I think it depends on, you know, the race of the child. If the child is from a white or Caucasian background, they would most likely just, without questioning, assume that Jesus is white, fair skin, like that child might be. I think if the child is of a different race other than white, then they might note that, you know, that perhaps that's just a projection of the white culture, you know, their own image of Jesus. I mean, for me personally, my dad's Chinese, and I grew up in a Christian household and saw the pictures and so forth, and I would, you know, kind of wonder myself, and oh well, this is probably just everybody in my church. Almost everybody was white, and I just kind of thought, you know, well, that's what they think Jesus looks like. It's not necessarily what he looks. He probably didn't look like that.
Okay. So, do you think that if a child, you know, takes on a thought process like what you just described, you think that might last or stick with that child for the entirety of their life? Would it be something that would be healthy for the child's mind, or do you think it would be something that would be detrimental to the child's mind?
I think it's healthy. I mean, we don't have pictures of Jesus, and we can surmise what he might have looked like based on, you know, the anthropological data and studies and what the people from that region look like now. I think it's healthier for people to keep an open mind about what he looked like, if that's, you know, an important thing to them, that they shouldn't just assume that all these images that we see in American culture are the way he looked. I think that can be actually harmful for a child, because they may just assume that, you know, oh, Jesus is white, Jesus, you know, is part of white culture, or embodies the views that a lot of white people have. I don't know, I'm not saying that very well.
No, you're saying it very well. So suppose that one particular child, or maybe a segment of children, began to believe that Jesus was God. Suppose they thought that he was God, and they were shown pictures like the ones we're talking about now. What kind of effect do you think that would have on their minds?
Well, I think a lot of children, well, in a lot of Christian studies, they teach that Jesus is God, and that Jesus is part of, you know, Jesus the Father, Jesus the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So I think that is very common for them to teach that he is God, and I think that is also, you know, concerning, that if people assume that Jesus was white and Jesus is God, then they might, you know, assume that God is white and God has a race, and I don't think that's true, and I don't think that's a healthy way of thinking. Whether that person is white, you know, the child, or whether that person's of a different race. Because I think, you know, probably not just white children, but probably a lot of other children of other races might think that Jesus is white, God is white. And I don't believe that.
Well, thank you so much. This has been a very good interview, and one of the best so far. And I'd like to thank you.
Thank you, and good luck with your documentary.
Thank you.